Sorry.
So thank Anna de la Cueva, the other artist who can't be with us today, unfortunately. So also much thanks to the staff of Riverdale Senior Services, Marissa Silver, Barbara Denson, Margie Shustak, and especially the 95 volunteers who participated in making this tapestry happen behind me, and we'll hear from 3 of them today. We're very fortunate that they can join us. Henri Morales, who's here, and Alan Madigan, who's here, and Luciana Pepinella, who will join us by Zoom. I'm Kira Ponzi. I'm a curatorial consultant for Sophia's Living Laboratory. Unfortunately, Olivia Georgia, executive director, and Mary Miss, the founder, couldn't join us today. They both have the flu. They sent everyone their regards. Sophia's Living Laboratory is a nonprofit that's been around for more than a decade, whose main aim is to make sustainability tangible. And one of the projects that Call has been working on for some time revolves around daylighting Tibbetts Brook. And Matthew will speak more about that, and I'll give you a little more information as well. Until the early 1900s, Tibbetts was a rich estuary that ran further north from where we are today, past Portland Park and into the Harlem River. But this section of the brook that ran from Van Cortlandt Lake to the Harlem River was put underground in the early 1900s, and now it's a combined wastewater, rainwater, sewer tunnel. And so the area is missing a ton of fresh water that is now channeled into the sewer, as well as the rich habitats that could live and thrive along the part of the brook that's now underground. So Matthew will speak much more about the tapestry, but just to give you a little framing, this blue line in the tapestry is the part of the brook that will become daylighted, meaning it will be moved above ground by initiatives that the city of New York is doing, and after many, many years of community advocacy. So the daylighting, the process of bringing it above ground will have many positive effects for the community. It will mitigate stormwater, insulate buildings, cool the neighborhood, provide a habitat for many kinds of plants, and also water will not be going into the sewer system, which also during storms, increasingly because of ecological catastrophe we're in, has a very detrimental effect on the neighborhood. So over 2 years in workshops and videos, the 95 volunteers who generously donated their time and energies to make this tapestry imagined flat rooftop buildings along the Broadway corridor. Imagine what they could be like as green roofs and with enhanced gardens. And they embroidered the kinds of plants that would be most adaptable to this particular environment and that would thrive in it. So I am going to briefly turn it over to Kabir Altif from City's Living Laboratory to give you a little more background information on Call, and then to Rebecca Lucher, who will tell you about the gathering that we're organizing on October 26th at Manhattan College, which you are all invited to. And with that in mind, I also want to pass around a sign sheet / email list so that we can send further information about the Tibbetts projects. I also invite you to the gathering at Manhattan College.
So I'm Kabir. I just started all last month as the development associate. And basically, so Call stands for City as Living Lab, and it was founded by Mary Miss in 2009. And the mission is basically to have artists and scientists collaborate to create art that addresses some of the environmental challenges that we're facing. And Tibbetts Brook is one example of that. There's also a project in Milwaukee called Watermarks, which has to do with the water system in Milwaukee, and basically installing water markers in different parts of the city, which will which light up when it rains, and they allow people to become aware of. And our methodology is that we, conduct walks or in various places, and those walks allow us to see what is happening in a particular community and what the challenges are, and then then have artist science collaboration to address. That's basically it. And now
It's be easier. Oh, just give it a second. Try it now.
I mean, I could also, can everyone hear me?
No, but we need to. Oh, because if we're gonna record.
Called Programs and Operations Manager. So on October 26th, we have a very exciting community gathering that will take place at Manhattan College. We're open for the library that will be displaying the tapestry, and also we are working with Kamala Sakakram. I want to pronounce her name correct, but I'm not positive. So she is an artist and composer who has developed this app along the pathway of where Tibbetts used to run. It's called the Murray Brook. While listening to the app within the location, you can follow the history and the overlay of the map that was originally following the pathway of the Tibbetts Brook. And she has collaborated with Native and Indigenous artists to create compositions and music that follow the path and is unique to each listener. And then also we have worked with Manuel Acevedo, who has worked at Am Park Neighborhood School with the 4th grade class to create their envisionings of what the daylighted brook would ideally be. And there's about 20 or so students that created all collages, multimedia collages that was installed at the school and an event at 18. And that will also be part of the gathering. And ideally we hope to see everyone there, and we'll have we'll be with Kamala, we'll be able to create, hopefully get some maybe collaborative form, and everyone will hopefully enjoy their time and see you there. Up to, I guess,
Quick thank yous. I want to thank all of you for coming. First of all, thank you. And to thank the supporters of this program, the Coady Foundation, the NEA, New York State Council of the Arts, the Mellon Foundation, New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and also former and current partners for this project, the Van Cortlandt House Museum, Human Impacts Institute, Taipei Economic and Cultural Office, and Manhattan College, as we mentioned, for the gathering in October. Now we'll hear from Matthew Lopez Johnson. He's a Bronx-based artist, an interdisciplinary and environmental artist whose projects combine walking, collecting, mapping, photography, and social engagement. He's a citizen pruner, community gardener, educator, and environmental advocate. So please join me in welcoming Matthew.
All right. Has anyone here ever embroidered? I just need to show a hand. All right. Few experts. Anyone ever seen Tibbetts Brook? Okay, so where have you seen it? Where have you seen it? In Westchester. Yeah, why haven't you seen it in the Bronx? It's full of buildings, yeah. And that was probably a bad idea, right? Wouldn't it have been nice to have a street that runs all the way down to Broadway, walk along that? So yeah, I live up in Norwood, on the Oval Park. And Van Cortlandt is one of my backyards. And so I've been walking all over there for a while. And this project actually started before this project started. It started with me in the woods, hopping over fences in the golf course to try to visit little bits of Tibbetts Brook that are spots. There are some beautiful spots of Tibbetts Brook in the Bronx, but you can't see them. You want to hop an iron rust fence off. So the city has done so many things to keep this river away from us, to keep us from growing So for me, that's kind of annoying. And so I had done a video of this first, and I hiked and walked all over Yonkers and up the river to get to know what little of Tibbetts. Then this project started. So I kind of became an expert on the stream. And then Mary Miss said, what could you do with bread? So then 2 years later, this project came about. And it's the most complicated project I've ever done in my life. And I don't know if you really want to hear all about it, but it started with an understanding of the stream. But then what we're looking at is the largest collectively embroidered map ever made. Because why would anybody collectively embroider a map in the middle of a pandemic? So do you guys remember COVID? That was fun, right? Still kind of going on. But that was the other curveball that you're seeing here. How do you make public art with people in the middle of a pandemic? A lot of mail, a lot of sending things in the mail, a lot of kit building, a lot of things coming back in the mail, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of admin. So this is a beautiful tapestry, but if you could see the amount of files on the computer, the amount of phone calls, the amount of other things that happen, it's also administrative task to make this happen. And so the first step I did here, I'll just go through the really boring, like how this happens stuff. Makes sense to you, great. Doesn't, don't worry about it. But the first thing I did was I used Google Maps to look at our neighborhood. So this is a little mini version of, if you've all been to Van Cortlandt Lake, and that's really where Tibbetts ends in the sewer right here. This is all we get of Tibbetts. And then it dives into the sewer, and it's kind of running under here. You don't see it. And this blue line is where it's going to go. And so this is not a reality, it is a. And so what I did to make this was, I basically had to draw a big map of the neighborhood and then trace every single building that has a flat roof. Because flat roofs are really big problems. Flat roofs in parking lots, they take the rainwater and they send it away fast. Whereas, say, the lawn around in Cortland, when it rains on a grass lawn, the rain just sits there and it gets absorbed by the plants, it goes down into the ground, and it's not a problem. But when you have all these flat roofs, like the roof on the Staples, roof on the Stop and Shop, the roof on the Aldi, all those roofs shouldn't be roofs, those should be swamps. Those should be places where water falls and the water rests. And so daylighting Tibbetts Brook is going to happen one day. But now imagine this map right here and take all of the color away. All the flowers, all these imaginations, take them all away. Unfortunately, that's what we're planning to do. We're not going to have any green roofs. We're just going to have this little tiny blue stream, and that's what we're getting. And so this whole map is a provocation. It's really saying we need more than just daylighting Tibbetts Brook. We need more than this tiny little stream that's going to be hard to access. We actually need to bring the whole estuary back. The whole landscape should be green, and it can be with green roofs. You can actually put living green things on roofs, and they are better for them. I'm not saying trees and I'm not saying parks, but just mosses and lichens and grasses and little flowers that want to be on a rooftop. If they are all green, all these rooftops were green, when it rains, the water would stay there and it would make a great place for a bird or a bug. We could look out our windows, we could stand on the subway platform and look out at green fields instead of rooftops. And so this piece is really about imagining more than just daylighting Tibbetts Brook. It's about imagining rooftop gardens. And so that's what we have here. Is we have everybody who signed up to participate. What they did was I took that map that I made on my computer and then had the whole thing digitally embroidered. So all of the really perfect straight lines, the river, the railroad tracks, the buildings, that was all done by computerized embroidery machine that can kind of like the same thing that would make a hat or a t-shirt. So we did that in Mexico. That's where Ana de la Cueva, my collaborative artist, works and lives. She lives in Guadalajara. And so in Guadalajara, she worked with her team to embroider some of this stuff. And then it came back to us empty, kind of like a coloring book, an empty coloring book of embroidered stitches. It was pretty boring. And then the fun part was to meet 95 volunteers and then send them a package in the mail. And that package had everything you needed to do the embroidery. It had instructions on the flowers, the plants, it had all the colors. But what really is, and then there were videos online, you could learn how to do different stitches. So it got even more complicated than that. So once you got the kit in the mail, you opened it up, okay, but I don't know how to embroider. So me and Anna created videos about how to embroider these little stitches. So a lot of the people up here have never embroidered it in their whole life. So this was also to teach people about embroidery. So some of them are experts, some of them had never done it. Secret, I never embroidered before. So one of these is my square. Anyways, what was I saying? So yeah, so if you look really closely, you'll notice that some of the stitches are the same in different places. So a lot of the embroiderers just did their own thing. They didn't pay attention to any of the instructions. They had fun and put flowers wherever they wanted. And that's great. They put trees in places. But what I did to help guide the process was create actual 16 stitches based on 16 very specific plants that would be happy growing on a rooftop. So goldenrod and shaggy asters, gosh, let's see, wild indigo and prickly pear cactus and black-eyed Susans, red top grass, succulents, all these different plants that are here are actually real plants that I studied and then created little stitches on. So I made a different web video for each stitch. And so there's a lot of these stitches that recur. So even though it's wildly different, when you got this package, you were also learning about plants. The people were learning how to embroider, learning about plants, learning about green roofs, and learning about their neighborhood. A lot of people have never seen their neighborhood map like this before. So it's a really great way to walk up and touch things and see where they are and really imagine more. What else can I say? And then they all came back. It took like 6 months of chasing down the tiles. They all came back and then we sent them all back to Mexico. And Anna with her team stitched them together. She added the detail work of the trim. And then what she also did was she had a lot of fun with her friends down there, and all the blank tiles, which would have just had absolutely nothing, she just went creative and had fun with them. So all of these little imagined things, boaters, kayakers, fishermen, hot air balloons, kites, a bumblebee, a turtle over here, a fish over here, boats in the lake, helicopter, all the stuff there is just fun and added, and it makes it a lot more fun to look at. So that's that. And so this is going to be traveling, and every time it travels, it teaches people about the neighborhood, about plants, and it can be a learning tool. And hoping that it also asks the city to help us get more green roofs on our rooftops. So asking those corporations which own those buildings to flood. Everyone ever seen the neighborhood flood? Okay. Would that happen if all of these flat roofs had green roofs? Probably not as bad. So if you own a plot and you have a building, you're kind of responsible for some of that flooding because you took away the estuary. So if you put a green roof on a building, kind of helping to stop that water from flowing out to the street and into Van Cortlandt or wherever it ends up, or in your basement. Yeah, and so this piece will live on for years and years, and hopefully it'll be a reminder to the city that, okay, I got a beautiful, narrow park along a really ugly highway. That's okay, that's cool. It's gonna solve some of the problems from a sewage standpoint. It's very much infrastructure, but it may not be very beautiful. We may never know it's there. When you're on the subway platform, you're not gonna see Tibbetts. It's gonna be hiding behind the big box stores, but you will see the big box store rooftops. They had gardens, that'd be great. And so that's what this is asking. It's asking for the city to go a little bit further than daylighting. It's asking for clean roofs. And we did it with embroidery. So believe it or not, this, as cute as this is, it's actually a very political piece. It's about land use, and stormwater, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Wait for questions, or do you want to ask? I just go into questions. Yeah. Yeah, what was the question? No
But-
street.
You know, what, if you
Yeah.
could just repeat, so if we
Yeah.
have the recording, people can
Yeah,
hear
so
the
the question was,
questions.
where is the water going to run when it's daylighted? So right now, it's not gonna go on the street, and you're probably not even gonna know it's there unless somebody points it out to you. But this is I think it's the Major Deegan, right? That's right there. That, I don't like highways and I don't like roads, so I didn't put any of them in embroidery. But I did put the bridges on. So these are the bridges that go over the Major Deegan. And that is right here, and they're gonna take the stream and put it right in this tiny narrow strip of land, which is still there. It used to be an old rail line. So there's a tiny strip of land. So if you're walking over the bridges here or here, you can look down right now and you can see that there's green space. And they're gonna take that green space and put it, this stream in there. So if you're gonna visit Tibbetts, it's gonna be a crazy highway, a narrow path view, a stream, and then a big box store. So it's still gonna feel like you're in like a kind of cavern, unlike the High Line, kind of above it all, here you're gonna be kind of below it all. And those big box stores are still gonna be above you. Yeah, so that's right there. And then it ends over here. Well, there will be a nice moment at some point over here where there's a park right by the East River where the water's. That'll be nice. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do the big box stores agree that having greenery on will not negatively affect the roof? Or the pay?
Well, the big box stores, I've never asked them to care. You know, it's like not really, they don't, if you say something's gonna cost $5, they're gonna say, oh, we can't. But if you tell them that it's gonna cost the city $100,000 in storm damage, and maybe that they're responsible for that, then maybe they would think, okay. But that's a really good question, but it's also a really long conversation because the city has passed laws about green roofs that corporations can easily go around. But they basically say if you put a new roof on your building, it has to be a green roof. And so when Staples or Stop and Shop redoes their roof, they'll just pretend that they didn't do it. They'll just call it refurbished instead of replaced. It'll avoid having to put the green roof on. So the city's gonna have to step in at some point and actually figure out a better way to do it. And I think the city should just put all the green roofs on themselves and figure it out. But green roofs, actually what they do is, and it's surprising, I live in a co-op and we've been wondering if we had to replace our roof, and it was a very practical thing. And you think that putting a green roof is gonna like somehow make it leakier or degrade the rubber. But actually what that does is all those plants and all that stuff on top absorb the sunlight, and the sunlight is what damages the roof faster and harder than anything else. So you're actually protecting your roof when you have a green roof on there. It's absorbing the water. It's if you have a place where it's leaking, just small leak, instead the plants are splitting out water. And the sun is not hitting and drying up your asphalt, and it's also saving you thousands of dollars in air conditioning bills because it's all those top floor apartments, or that if you have a Stop and Shop, it's huge and it's one floor and the entire thing is absorbing heat. If it was all with a green roof, the entire thing would be cool. They wouldn't have to air condition it so much. They would save thousands of dollars in air conditioning bills. And that's usually the incentive for these places. But
I just. So, big roofs. They had done buildings, from the ground up, big 7 stories. Incorporated in the design.
yeah.
Oh, the shoe was.
Mm.
It's amazing how this designer took an area which she created this.
Yeah, she was mentioning that there's in other countries like Singapore, they're doing a better job at putting green things in places. And yeah, we are doing a horrible job. The news covers all of the bad problems when we have the storms, but it doesn't cover the fact that we're not doing anything about it. I think nothing has changed in our neighborhood the past 5 years as far as greenery on the rooftops. And it's really frustrating for me to look at because it's one of those solutions that is kind of easy. And imagine how, I mean, it's rough to walk down on Broadway. Like in the summer, it's dusty, it's hot, it's gross. And it would be so much nicer, if there was just a lot more green, every parking lot should have trees in it, and have places to catch water, all the rooftops should be green. Be beautiful, instead of just like kind of a wasteland. They took this estuary, which was full of birds and water and fish. They just paved over and sold the land. And that's what a lot of the edge of the city was, just, it's a great place to make money if your city, sell off swampland. Now we don't have the swampland to absorb the stormwater.
Also, in that same show, they also talked about how cities, because of the pavement, the temperatures had proven, they did research that the temperatures in cities are much higher
So-
than in other areas, which is causing global warming, a lot of heat, which is very,
Well, it's deadly. It can kills people in the cities. And so Tibbetts broke above ground will provide a little bit of moisture and humidity into the air. But green roofs would do that 10 times fold. So that the real incentive of green roofs is it cools our neighborhood down on a summer day and keeps people safe.
And of course.
Yeah.
Squirrels.
Yeah, squirrels, birds, butterflies, and all, and those things make you happy, even if you don't know it.
one more question.
Yeah. Let's hear from some people who are busy stitching.
One more question, in terms of compensation, will it bring in employment, because I'm thinking of retaining the structures, would that be factored in and taken into?
I mean, I
For the
imagine,
city? Would
yeah.
that be
So the
city-
question is,
the question is, so will there be more jobs generated by green roofs? A huge, yeah, it's a huge industry. Like if I was 20 right now, I would start a green roof company. Because it is gonna be major, because everyone's gonna have to do it, and then the maintenance will be like, just like maintaining your roof. People maintain roofs, people will maintain green roofs, and it will be a whole new green industry that hopefully our students will be able to move into. Yeah. Right. Let's hear from some participants.
Hi, I'm Henry Morales, and I'm one of the volunteers that created one of the squares on this Tapestry. It was a great experience, and I was so happy to receive that email asking me to volunteer, and I said, what is this? So I looked into it, and it had to do with the environment, it had to do with flowers, greenery. And I'm one of those people that also climbs those fences or go under caves looking for, being adventurous, seeing what's out there, and I want to discover it. And this was an incredible opportunity for me. So imagine this. When I was a kid, I used to get these boxes from all over the world that would teach me about other countries. And some of them were painting projects, some of them were embroidery projects. Some of them sent me rocks from different caves. So when I got this kit, I was so wow, this is great. It was a project in the middle of the pandemic. So I'm also an avid gardener. So what I do during the winter is I sit down with my catalogs, and I plan what I'm going to plant. When spring comes and summer is here, and then the fall. The winter is very dark. So I had this project, I said, wow, along with sitting here and planting my garden for the summer, I'm going to embroider this square, and I'm gonna put so many flowers on it. And I really had a lot of fun. I really learned about Tibbetts Brook and living in the community. And as I walk, I notice the buildings now, and I imagine the greenery being here and making it much nicer for us. It's really something that soothes your mind, gives you peace of mind when you look at something. The colors green and the colors of flowers are very soothing to the mind. So hopefully this project goes further. I'm full support of it, and learning, looking to embroider after so many years, because the last time I did with embroidery was probably in the second grade that I embroidered a handkerchief. for my mom for Mother's Day. And this brought it all back, all the stitching and all the threads and bonding was very interesting. So I really enjoyed the project. I was. Marissa, our activity. It had been time. Online demonstration was helpful. Yeah, I was relieved when the deadline. Because it was right after. Text, yeah. It's very. It says, that's where daylight was. Underground. work, saw the Tapestry map with the brook above ground. I was reminded of the aftermath of Hurricane Ida, when the major deed in 87 was completely flooded. Normally, look down at the traffic, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't even looking at the house. It was a lake. And a couple of days later, I had a doctor's appointment. I got up there normal time, but it took us 2.5 hours to get. So, you know, I felt the effects of the flooding personally. So our tapestry, oh, highlights a very good. I was glad to discover that the child I was working just down the block here, my good friend, and so very happy to see the tapestry here in Orlando, because I missed it at the Portland Museum. And so, you'll agree, it's been pieced together beautifully. One night, the idea, creativity, environmental concerns, and individualistic work to come together as art supported.
Just art coming into public action, I can't remember the exact word.
So nice to see the ideas, creativity.
If you could pass the mic down to whoever's speaking.
I just said this is so nice to see the ideas, creativity, environmental concern, and individual stitches work come together as art supported public action.
It's a really good line. But also looks great. It brought me back. Like I could sit up here and talk about the object because my brain has kind of forgotten how awful the pandemic was and how depressing it was and how important it was in the middle of the pandemic to be on Zoom calls with people and to be having these dialogues over the internet and also just like all of a sudden embroidery felt like the center of the world. Like the sound of the thread coming through the fabric was like the soothing thing, like okay, everything's gonna be okay. And so it was a bit of a healing moment for everyone involved to have some connection. And to know that they're making something that's gonna continue. It's technically pandemic art, that's the thing now, like this is pandemic art, will always be remembered as something really informed by all of that stress and all of those constraints came out of that. So it's kind of a neat thing to think about. And hopefully it'll stay in museums and public eyes, and the work that they did and their names continue to be a part of that conversation.
I have two questions for you. How do you think it would have been different had it not been pandemic times? I imagine maybe all of the participants would have come together. And did you do any of the embroidery yourself?
Yeah, so if it wasn't for the business, we didn't expect the pandemic to be quite as bad. So we did have like sewing circles in the design, like we were able to get together in Portland Park and sew together and talk about Tibbetts, but there was a lot more in-person stuff. And there were a few days when me and Liza, who worked at Call, just were out in Portland Park setting up shop, like talking to people passing by outside. It seemed safe enough. But then things would get worse. They get better, they get worse, they get better. And so things stayed online. I have a tile up there. I thought I was going to have to do half of them because I didn't expect so many participants to be able to part. So I did one. I had a whole pile of them. And I was like, oh, I have to get these all back now because we had people to participate. And so I was delighted that we had almost more people who wanted to do it than we could offer tiles. That will really prove that there was some market or interest in this idea. Which was exciting. Any questions out there? Comments or
What's your next project?
oh my next project is actually tomorrow. So has anyone ever been to Mosholu Parkway? Okay, so Mosholu Parkway has been a new center for my project making right now. This part of Mosholu Parkway between the 4 train and Van Cortlandt Park. Okay, it's across from DeWitt Clinton High School. It's across from a nursing home up at St. Patrick's. Across from, if you're looking out of the window of St. Patrick's, you see a beautiful tree-lined marsh loop. But the reality was that it's 20 acres of abandoned forest. There were vines tearing down the trees, and there were garbage dumps all inside. And the neighborhood was pretty scared of it. Like nobody wants to go in there. So for the past year, I've been working to clean it. To get the vines out, to get the garbage out, and we're putting a trail through the middle of it. We're replanting it with native species. It's a really exciting project. It's called the Mosholu Teaching Forest. So we're going to turn that 20 acres of abandoned land into a forest that is really designed for teaching. So students can go in there and touch the plants and learn about them. That's what I'm working on now. It's like taking over my life. I am, yeah. So JBLOC, James Baldwin Outdoor Living Center, they have been doing an amazing job activating the DeWitt Clinton ground, building Meg's Garden, and so they kind of have come in and are sort of the nonprofit centerpiece of the project. So it's not just me, and we've been working with summer youth employment students this summer, and I've been bringing random groups of students there to pull vines, and then also the Parks Department. So the biggest part of the problem was that the parks had kind of abandoned. So it was beyond our abilities to do as individuals and as volunteers to deal with. So they've come in and done the heavy lifting. Now we can actually start to fix things. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. 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 So yeah, there's called like the sort of band of land that's around the Greenway. It's like New York City Greenway. Yeah, the Greenway. Technically, you can bike almost all the way around Manhattan. You can kind of bike your way into the Bronx and go up the Bronx River. But eventually, the Tibbetts Brook is supposed to be a bike path, and then that will allow you to take the trail to connect with the Putnam Trail that goes up through Yonkers. So it is going to be a nice bicycling and walking connection, you know, to expand that experience. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I love
What's
that.
the question?
Oh, so the question, what can we do to push the city to have more green roofs? Is the next time you see Eric Diewitz or a family member Diewitz or whoever your local people are, say, why don't we have green roofs? You know, have you ever been on the one train and looked out? That's where this piece, which I love, and I don't know if anybody wanted me to get political with it, but I kind of wanted to. I wanted it to be opening up doors and conversations about where are our green roofs on these big flat roofs and why aren't they there? You're gonna get an answer, oh, we passed some laws aren't working, so why aren't they working? And so, yeah, next, just be a pest. It's now your job to get the green roofs into our neighborhood, because this is just to remind everybody it'd be beautiful, that it's possible, that we have a lot of flat space, more than a lot of places. Yeah, but good question. Now it's your job. But I mean, imagine if there was an sort of an estuary conservancy, and if this is an imagined idea, what if we had a real group that only just advocated for green roofs in this region, in this corridor, to stop flooding? That would get some attention. That would push the idea of daylighting Tibbetts Brook a lot farther if the water was running into the brook off these green roofs clean instead of still into the sewer. Yeah. Yeah.
Meant to mention this before, I'm on my co. So I could push for that, I don't know how far it would go. But there's a magazine that all the board members get. It's called Tapestry. Maybe I could write to them and ask them to do a feature on green.
Yeah.
And how much they would cost, the width funding.
Yeah.
So if you're on co-op, that's it.
I just stopped being president of my co-op. And I can tell you, when you want to spend a penny, it's not easy, but when you have to position it as how we're gonna save. How is this gonna save the roof? How is it's gonna extend the life of the roof? And how is it gonna increase the value of our building, all those kind of things factored in. And it's a lot of pressure to put on co-ops or apartments. And so in my opinion, we just focus on the major corporations that own these bigger roofs, a great place to start. They can lay the framework, and then the smaller co-ops make smaller groups take over.
But Riverdale is mostly co-ops. They own the big building.
Well, with the big buildings, yeah. So, but the big flat roofs, like Stop and Shop,
Oh, you mean
That's what I'm
you're
talking
talking
about.
about the commercial?
yeah, I'm kind of the low
Yeah,
lying stuff, the
the
stuff
low
that
line,
is on
right,
the estuary right now. Stuff
That's
that shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you have a building like,
Maybe a tougher place to start.
yeah,
But
yeah. Probably, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's possible, yeah, and my husband's now on community board 7. So we have community board 8 in the house and direct line to 7, but yeah, community boards are an important place. But it's also just requires education, because green roofs don't make any sense, like, it just sounds like a park on a roof, that's like, nobody can handle that, no building can actually handle parties and people walking. A green roof is just a really different thing, so teaching community board what that is important stuff. It's like, everything's the highlight. That's that steel piece of infrastructure that can hold a train. A green roof weighs almost nothing. It's designed to weigh it possible.
I have a computer, not in my house in New York City, but somewhere else. And there's a lot of species that live on my roof. They've made it their homes. See the same family of birds flying and they live there permanently, which is such a nice idea that you can give that kind of habitat to non-human animals.
Yeah, there's always some seagulls swirling over the Stop and Shop. I feel like they might remember when it was a swamp. This where these are the great grandchildren of the ones that were actually in the estuary. Because birds remember. And so you said you're a gardener. Can you tell us a little bit about where you garden?
And the initiative was. get, Um. two types of plants. Some are always into doing something.
Mm.
And you got people. I always imagine.
Yeah, a lot of this green root material is just sort of just like carpeting, kind of roll it out and then it grows. So
Yeah, we have just another minute or two. Do we have any other questions or comments or? Yes.
Is there a time frame, a timeline to when
The blue line is on the top of the career.
I wish I had the actual. The city just this year finished the purchase of the land. So I think that they got a CSX railroad, so it's in motion. I don't know what the timeline is. Yeah, it's soon, but never, probably 10 years take to get it finished.
It's a decade of advocacy to get to this point. I can't imagine it being, less than a decade.
Yeah, I think this idea had been dreamt up in the early 1990s, when the first people were starting to advocate for the purchase of the land and the installation of the
For all of you, like to have you see this tapestry live in the future, where, when, what context.
Do you mean where will it be?
Well, I mean, that's all whole question.
And it's small. So.
Just for my. Whole thing.
Spend a lot of time looking at maps. We go to the library on 42nd Street.
Mm.
And if you look back at the history of that library, there was this. So taking all the maps into consideration and how they show us how the island of Manhattan. I think this map would be a great contribution to that exhibition of how New York develops in the future and what we have to look forward to.
Carrie, I'm gonna put you on the task of reaching out to the map room at the New York Map Room, because this is the kind of map people, and they get really geeky around maps. So I think when they see this, they get do something. But I do wanted to either donate it to the Bronx Museum, which is about to do a big expansion. They're gonna double their size. So they have plenty of room for this, and then or the El Barrio Museum, which is not far from this. Either way, just so it stays here, always studied by.
This is sort of retro question. Did you ever consider putting in shaded mat? The root of the old brook?
I did, so we asked, the question was, did I ever want to put the old brook shaded in? And I actually, the very first idea was to, on the back of the map, have the original map kind of there as a secondary layer, so you can go to the other side and see the old like outline. Because right now it's, you know, if you, unless you know it, but like Marble Hill is the hill because the river went this way around it. Like there's, you can see where all the storage, like all this storage, all the flat stuff was put right on where the marsh is. So you can kind of see where the old river was. If you look at the one-story buildings.
But it comes out south of east of Broadway. That's Broadway, where the Kingsbridge, where
Yeah, right
the
here.
Broadway Bridge is.
Yeah,
So the brook runs along Tibbetts Avenue between Tibbet and
yeah, it used to come down here, but it made an island out of all of this. So
Right.
there was like a marsh stretch here. And it's amazing to see. But yeah, I wanted to. But we decided that, and I invite you all to go take a look at the back because it's a mess and that's fun. So
just the riverbed.
yeah,
It's in parking lots that
Yeah.
run along
Yeah.
Tibbet. I mean, there's just this huge depression.
yeah, it's neat. Yeah, you're walking around, you can really see it. But do go around the back and check out how messy it is. Anna loves that. I liked it. It's a kind of a reminder that this is neat. Life is neat and tidy, but then reality is a mess. And so you can go back and see how the world is made.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for your participation and nice words today. And I hear there's to be a reception with ice cream.
Getting ready, yes, we're gonna have ice cream and,
So let's all celebrate the tapestry some more together.
all right, go check.
Don't go away, food is coming. Okay.